I returned from a 3-day regional summit, riding the quiet high of victory. Numbers were up across the board. We had not only met our deliverables ahead of schedule, we had outperformed projections. I had even secured an additional training budget for my team. A rare feat these days. I remember standing in the elevator that Monday morning, arms full of reports and small gifts I had picked up for the team, thinking, we're finally being seen. But the moment those elevator doors opened, something shifted. The usual Monday buzzed the laughter from design, the scent of overbrewed coffee wafting from the kitchenette, the rhythmic tapping of code from the East Wing was missing. What replaced it was a hush so sterile, so wrong, I could feel it pressing against my skin. I turned toward our hallway, our wing, and felt my stomach drop. Empty. The desks. Cleared. Monitors. Gone. The framed team photo from our first product launch? Missing. Even the little rubber plant Jamila insisted on naming Kevin had vanished. What remained were faint outlines in the dust ghosts of presence, like someone had tried to erase us clean. I called out instinctively. Jamila? No answer. Dax? Still nothing. Then I spotted him. Loxley, from accounting. He paused when he saw me, his face, pulling into something between pity and apology. You should check the basement. The what? They moved them yesterday. My throat went dry. We didn't have space in the basement. That was storage and facilities access. My feet moved before my brain caught up. Down one floor, then another. The silence thickened with every level we descended. The basement was cold, smelled faintly of rust and mildew. I walked past stacks of unused chairs, old server racks, a leaking pipe that sang a rhythmic drip, and then I found a cheap plastic sign, taped crookedly to a gray door. Engineering Team B. Oh. Inside were 7 people I had personally hired. 7 minds I had fought for, grown with, bled with under deadline pressure. They were huddled between exposed wiring and stacked cardboard boxes. Folding tables held up their monitors. Extension cords tangled like snakes underfoot. And Jamila, our lead developer, was sitting beneath a pipe that dripped water into a bucket by her chair. She looked up, not surprised, just tired. They gave us 30 minutes, she said. Said we had to make room for someone more important. Her voice did not rise. It cracked. I couldn't breathe for a moment. They brought in some consultant, Wren added, her voice low. A productivity transformation specialist. Deere said he's going to revolutionize the whole department. Deere, the new department head. 6 months on the job. All gloss, no grit. Always talking about fresh eyes and next-gen efficiency. But it wasn't until that moment, standing in a leaking basement with my team barely able to connect to Wi-Fi, that I understood what he really meant. He didn't just want to bring someone new in. He wanted to replace us. The humiliation. I do not remember the elevator ride back up. I only recall the silence. That dense, suffocating kind of silence that follows you when your dignity has been trampled but you are not allowed to scream. My fingers were clenched around the railing. I stared straight ahead at the flickering floor numbers. Each passing level felt like a reminder of what had been taken. Not just space, not just desks, but presence, identity, power. When the doors opened on our old floor, I walked into a familiar corridor that now felt foreign. The lighting hadn't changed, but the energy had. You could tell when a space had been hollowed out. Not physically, spiritually. And there he was. A young man in a tailored blazer, positioning framed certificates on the desk that had once been mine. His fingers were careful, methodical, as he straightened each frame like he was decorating his living room. He didn't even look up. Behind him, Deere hovered. His presence filled the room like the stench of cheap cologne and unchecked ego. He turned to me with a smile that said, "I've already won." "Ah, there you are," he said, far too cheerily. "Meet Bastion, our new productivity transformation specialist." Bastion did not acknowledge me. Not a nod. Not a glance. His focus remained on arranging his wall of accolades. Deere continued. Voice dipped in theatrical admiration. Bastion's methods increased team output by 300% at his last 3 firms. He's a real game changer, truly visionary. Naturally, He'll need space to implement his framework. Quiet. Light. Central visibility to the testing and design teams. You understand. He gestured to the desk I had led from for 8 years. I remained silent. Still, he leaned in, dropping his voice. Your team can manage downstairs. Just for now. Until the next budget review. A temporary adjustment. A temporary adjustment. Like we were loose wiring or broken drywall. I looked at Bastion. He was now hanging a corkboard labeled Efficiency Targets. Still no glance in my direction. I felt it then, that sharp, acidic burn at the base of my throat. Not from anger. Not even from sadness. From clarity. From the realization that everything we had done, all the late nights, the patchwork fixes, the impossible deadlines met with excellence, had been quietly buried beneath corporate vanity. I turned and walked back toward the elevator. Not because I had accepted it, but because I knew a storm could not begin with thunder. Back in the basement, the team looked up as I returned. Their faces were a map of emotions: worry, fatigue, shame. Jamila sat with her arms crossed, the bucket still catching water next to her. Dax avoided my eyes. Kyrie pretended to read an error log, but her screen was blank. I surveyed them, their quiet resilience, their trust in me even now. Then I smiled. It was not bitter. It was not false. It was quiet. Knowing. Pack your bags, I said. Their brows furrowed. Ren tilted her head. Wait. What? Not just for down here, I said. Everything. Jamila blinked. You're serious? I nodded. Start gathering what you would want to take with you. Files, code, diagrams, notes, systems. Quietly. And don't speak of this to anyone. Not yet. I could feel the question rising on all their faces. Are we being let go? Are we quitting? Is this the end? But I gave them nothing more than that. Not because I didn't trust them, but because what was coming required precision. And dear? He had just moved the wrong piece off the board. Task 3. Silent resistance. The air in the basement never warmed. Not with the bodies. Not with time. It remained a stubborn, cold, damp, and metallic, like breathing through a steel pipe. The hum of machinery overhead never ceased. Neither did the slow drip from the pipe above Jamila's station. Every few seconds, plunk, 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 a cruel, rhythmic reminder of where we had been placed. But we worked. We worked like we always had, quietly, precisely, beyond expectations. I watched them, each of them, falling back into rhythm, even in exile. Jamila's fingers still moved like lightning over her keyboard, her scowl now a constant fixture. Dax coded with headphones on, but his eyes darted up every time someone entered the room, nerves fraying. Kyrie had taped a photo of her daughter beside her monitor, as if to reclaim something human in a space designed to erase us. Ren leaned over a circuit board, muttering to herself. We're not even getting proper voltage down here, she said. Every time the breaker resets, we lose connection for 7 seconds. Log it, I said without looking up. Document everything. That had been my only order since we were relocated. Archive. Annotate. Map every process. Every dependency. Create knowledge bases. Finish what you start. Jamila finally snapped after a week. I don't understand why we're doing all this. They stuck us in a moldy hole. They don't even know we exist down here. What's the point of acting like we're still a department? I looked up. Not harshly. Not condescendingly. Just steady. Because integrity is not something they can strip from us, I said. It is ours, even here. That silenced the room, not from fear, but something deeper, understanding. They didn't nod. They didn't cheer. They simply returned to work. That was our bond. We didn't need speeches. We needed purpose. The truth was, I didn't have a clean plan. Not yet. What I had was instinct, and a slowly forming web. Each evening, after they left, I stayed behind. Not just to review code or finalize documentation, but to think, to plot. I had begun reaching out quietly, a message to an old colleague here, a note to a former vendor there. I was careful with my language. No complaints, no rage, just questions, conversations, reconnection. Every move I made was silent, but intentional. Meanwhile, Deer played his part upstairs. Bastion's productivity framework, if you could call it, that was being plastered onto whiteboards in meetings we were no longer invited to. Ren showed me a photo someone had secretly snapped. Bastion pointing to a diagram titled, The New Frontier, Efficiency Through Isolation. They're calling it isolation efficiency now? Dax muttered. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The absurdity spoke for itself. And yet, no matter how ridiculous it became, we were ignored. No inquiries, no support tickets. No, how's it going down there? From human resources. We were ghosts. But ghosts can move unnoticed, can build in the shadows, can walk through walls. Late one Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. I stepped into the hallway, bare concrete, flickering fluorescent lights above. The name on the screen made my heart pause. Ian, the CEO. She got straight to the point. I'd like you to present your team's accomplishments at next month's board meeting. Recognition? Number. It was not that simple. Not now. Still, I said yes. It was the first opening. Back in the basement. I told them nothing about the call. Not yet. There was something building. Something delicate. One misstep, and the whole thing would collapse. But I saw it in their eyes when I returned. They trusted me, even in silence, even without answers. Sometimes, trust is not loud. Sometimes, it is a hand that keeps typing while the ceiling drips. The deception. The morning of the board meeting, I arrived early. Too early. The basement was still and gray, bathed in the kind of dim light that made time feel suspended. I sat at the folding table, alone, adjusting the slides I had worked on for days, highlighting metrics, success stories, breakthroughs. It wasn't just data. It was proof. Proof that we mattered. That we had never stopped delivering. I wore navy. Simple. Commanding. The suit I reserved for moments that required both clarity and control. At 8:30, I began the walk upstairs. A quiet journey, one step at a time, the stale air gradually shifting to the perfumed hum of executive space. My shoes clicked steadily on the marble tiles of the sixth-floor stairwell. I was rehearsing my opener in my mind, something about resilience under pressure, when the voice stopped me. Nia. It was Deer, blocking the stairwell like a well-dressed boulder. He smiled. That same rehearsed, corporate grin he wore in every town hall photo. There's been a change of plans, he said. He tilted my head. Excuse me? The board wants to hear about future innovation today, not past performance. I was personally invited by Ian. He lifted a finger. And I spoke with her this morning. She agrees. My approach makes more sense. Bastion will be presenting. He stepped aside slightly, but his posture remained firm. You can return to your team. I'll be sure to update them on any developments. I didn't move. Did not blink. Just studied him. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Then I stepped around him, slowly, as if nothing had been said. I walked back down the stairs with measured calm, every footstep echoing louder than his entire excuse. When I entered the basement, they looked up immediately. 7 pairs of eyes. Expectant. Hopeful. I set the laptop down. Ren was the first to speak. So, are they giving us the time we deserve? I paused. They changed the agenda. The silence that followed was brutal. Jamila exhaled sharply, slamming her chair back. So, that's it. Ren didn't speak. Just slowly closed a browser window. I caught a glimpse of it before it disappeared. A half-finished resignation letter. Dax looked down at his screen, unmoving. Kyrie wiped her glasses. Vega, our oldest, muttered. 32 years. And this is how they bury us. Oh. I looked at each of them, one by one. Then I said, softly but clearly, not yet. They blinked. What do you mean, not yet? Indra asked, her voice cool but tight. Keep packing, I said. Keep archiving. Stay focused. You still think they're going to come around? Jamila asked, incredulous. Number. Then why? Because we are not finished yet, I interrupted. And because some things take time to bloom. I. That evening, word filtered through the company grapevine like oil in water. Bastion's presentation had crashed and burned. Board members had asked technical questions he couldn't answer. He had misquoted figures, confused internal systems. At one point, he had referenced a product we hadn't sold in over a year. Some said Ian stood up halfway through. Others said she didn't even look at him as she left. By the next day, Deer came to the basement. He was all warmth now. Smiling. Casual. Good news, he announced, like he was gifting us with a favor. We're considering moving your team back upstairs, East Wing. Maybe even next week. The East Wing was not our old space. It was a downgrade. But above ground. A scrap thrown with a grin. I stood slowly, smiled. Thank you for recognizing our value, I said. The team stared at me, stunned. Jamila's jaw clenched. Ren's eyes widened. I didn't explain. Not yet. But that night, Ren told me she had deleted her resignation draft. Maybe, she whispered. Things are turning around. I only nodded. Because what I knew, and what they didn't yet, was that the real move had already begun. The counterplan. 2 days later, I invited an old colleague to tour the facility. Talia Morgan had once led crisis logistics for humanitarian supply chains in West Africa. She had built emergency tech infrastructure in earthquake zones, flooded regions, and places so remote GPS could barely recognize them. Now she was vice president at a rising tech firm across town, Grayscale Solutions. And unlike Deer, Talia didn't need buzzwords. Her resume spoke in achievements. We met in the lobby, two professionals, all smiles and catch-up chatter. But as we moved through departments, my timing was precise. I led her past the QA team, past the design wing, and then toward the executive floor, just as I knew Deer would be parading Bastion in front of prospective clients. As expected, he saw us. Too loudly, he called out, "Thea!" Perfect timing. His voice had the over-eager lilt of someone performing. Come meet the Grayscale executive team. They're very interested in Bastion's productivity system. Talia and I exchanged a glance. She shifted her weight onto one heel, smoothing the sleeve of her charcoal blazer. She didn't need introduction, but Deer gave it anyway, stumbling through names and titles until he landed on Bastion. This is Bastion. He's revolutionizing our workflow, Deer beamed. Bastion stepped forward, confident, all polished language and glossy charm. My methods helped triple productivity at my last 3 companies, he said. Northwest Technologies saw a 300% output jump in just 1 quarter. Strange, Talia replied, calm and measured. I sit on the board of Northwest Technologies. His smile twitched. We never recorded such gains, she continued, her tone sharpening. In fact, we documented project delays under your leadership, cost overruns, high staff turnover. It prompted an internal audit. Odd. The silence that followed was deafening. Deer's face flushed. Bastion blinked, then offered a practiced chuckle. There must be some confusion. No confusion, I interjected. I turned to Deer, steady and cold. Talia isn't just visiting. I accepted her offer yesterday. My team and I are joining her firm to build a new division. We start next Monday. For the first time, Bastion's grin cracked entirely. His gaze darted from Talia to Deer, then to me. You can't just take your team, Deer stammered. That's poaching, it's unethical. But completely legal, I replied evenly. Check our contracts. No non-competes, no retention clauses. You moved us into a basement and ignored every warning sign. You made this bed, Deer, Talia added smoothly. We've offered double their current salaries and actual office space, with ventilation. The Grayscale executives, clearly uncomfortable, began to gather their materials. Polite excuses fluttered the air like falling paper. Deer turned to me, eyes desperate now. Wait, he said, voice cracking. I'll match their offer. Renovations on East Wing start tomorrow. I held his gaze. Calm. Controlled. Too late, I said. He didn't speak again. just watched as Talia walked out with effortless grace, followed by the executives and me. When the doors closed behind us, I heard nothing but the soft hiss of air conditioning. That and the weight of a system cracking. Later that evening, he called me into a meeting room. Just him and Bastion. The lights were too bright, the table too long. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Dear asked, voice low, strained. "I secured my team's future," I said simply. "Something you were too distracted to do." "You've destroyed mine," he said. "The board was already doubting Bastion's hire. If your whole team leaves, you chose him over us," I said. Not cruelly, just honestly. "You were dazzled by noise. We gave you results. You threw us in a basement to make room for marketing fluff. Now you're surprised there are consequences." His composure cracked. "Please," he said. "What would it take for you to stay?" I looked at his hand as it gripped the table's edge. Then I spoke slowly. "Do you know what I learned in refugee camps, dear?" He blinked. "I learned that character is revealed, not when resources are abundant, but when they are scarce, when the ceiling is dripping, when Wi-Fi barely holds, when you move a team into darkness and assume they'll stay quiet." I stood. "You showed us exactly who you are. And now we're showing you who we are." I walked out, the soles of my shoes echoing through the corridor. Back in the basement, my team looked up as I entered. No one spoke. They didn't need to. I simply said, "It's done." Then I added, "We start next Monday." For the first time in weeks, the basement felt full of breath again. The revelation. The celebration was muted. No cheers, no champagne. Just deep exhales, quiet nods, a few watery eyes. We sat in a circle of folding chairs under humming fluorescent lights, surrounded by the familiar chaos of cables and coffee mugs. A strange peace settled over the team relief, wrapped in disbelief. Ren was the first to break the silence. She looked at me, her voice shaking slightly. "You really did it." I nodded once. "We all did." "But how?" Vega asked. "How did you pull this off in just 2 weeks?" He hesitated. "It wasn't 2 weeks," I said slowly. "I've been laying the groundwork for months." A ripple passed through the room. "Months?" Jamila echoed. "But the basement thing just happened." I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. The basement was just the final straw. I saw where things were heading the moment Deer arrived. The moment he started talking about fresh perspectives while ignoring our record. I didn't know when, but I knew eventually we'd be erased. "You've been planning our escape," Dax said softly. "Not an escape," I corrected. "An insurance policy." I told them everything. How I started archiving every contribution, every line of code, every fix, every success Deer took credit for. I showed them the digital timeline, the email chains, the contracts. I told them about the first call I had made to Talia, months ago, just to reconnect. Then, later, to ask what it might look like if I ever needed to bring a team with me. Nothing was guaranteed, but a door had been cracked open. When things deteriorated, I had stepped through it. Indra narrowed her eyes. "There's more, isn't there?" I met her gaze. "Yes." They waited. "I'm not taking all of us to Grayscale," I said. The air shifted. "What?" Ren asked, startled. "I've proposed a split," I explained. "Half the team joins Talia, as planned. The other half stays here if the company meets new terms. Autonomy, resources, leadership changes, direct reporting to the executive level. No more Deer." Vega leaned forward, skeptical. "You want us to trust them after all this?" "No," I said. "I want us to stop being dependent on any one system." A pause. "We split," I continued. "But we stay connected. We collaborate across companies. We share knowledge. We build a network no one else can control." Ah? The silence deepened this time. Not from shock, but contemplation. "And you?" Kyrie asked. "Which side are you choosing?" "Neither," I said. They all stared at me. "I'll consult for both. 1 foot in each world. I'm building the bridge." Jamila let out a low whistle. "You're serious." "Dead serious." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dax, of all people, chuckled. "That's brilliant." Mutual leverage, Indra murmured. No one can ever push us into a basement again. Uh. A quiet grin tugged at Jamila's mouth. We're going corporate rogue. We're building something bigger, I said. Something they can't erase. Not from a spreadsheet, not from an org chart, not from memory. We stayed in that room, long after the lights should have been off. Planning, debating, arguing, laughing. By the end of the night, they had reached consensus. The team would split. Not as a fracture, but as a design. And I would lead neither, but guide both. The showdown. The boardroom was colder than I remembered. Long mahogany table, water glasses arranged with geometric precision, suits in muted tones. Eyes already turned toward Deer, who stood near the screen, Bastion seated beside him. His confidence had returned, though it felt brittle, performative. I entered with my team behind me, each of them carrying sealed envelopes just as I had instructed. Deer's face paled slightly. His voice faltered for half a breath. But he recovered. We're transforming the department, he said. Bastion's model focuses on results, first productivity, streamlined communication structures, and measurable output. Slides clicked. Graphs moved. Buzzwords bloomed. Innovation over sentiment, he concluded. Data over tradition. Very impressive, one board member murmured. And what about the existing engineering team? Another asked. How are they adapting to these new methodologies? Deer smiled. There's been some resistance. Understandable. But we've taken temporary relocations, restructured workflow to support the transition. By temporary, Ian cut in, her voice mild. You mean moving the highest performing team to the basement? Several board members stirred. One frowned. Deer shifted. Only as a short-term measure. Workspace upgrades are underway, which began after they announced their departure. Ian asked. Hay hesitated. Then she turned to me. Nia, perhaps you could share your perspective. Ugh. I stood. My voice did not rise, but it filled the room. Thank you, Ian. Before I begin, I want to clarify, this is not about personal feelings. This is about systems, about leadership, about outcomes. I nodded to my team. Each stepped forward and distributed the envelopes. One for each board member, one for Deer, one for Bastion. Inside, 5 years of metrics, deliverables, efficiency logs, project outcomes, financial returns, all tied to our team. On page 12, a full audit of Bastion's career. Public records, lawsuits, terminations, class action settlements. The room fell silent. Bastion's last 3 companies, I said, experienced a short-term boost in appearance, followed by steep declines. Layoffs, dissolution, the 300% productivity increase? It never happened. It was never even tracked. Bastion tried to rise. You had no right. All public data, I replied calmly, including court filings. I do woe. A beat passed. Then another. One board member cleared his throat. These projections, are they accurate? Yes, I said. The current direction will result in a 30% decline in departmental output by Q3 based on your own systems. And what are you proposing instead? I gestured to a second folder, passed down the line. A dual-team collaboration. Our team splits between Grayscale and here. Shared resources, shared knowledge, independent autonomy, stability without full loss, innovation without blindness. Silence again. Then Ian spoke. And leadership? I met her eyes. This structure requires new leadership. Another pause. Then the board chair nodded slowly. Thank you, Nia, he said. We'll discuss internally. We gathered our things to leave. As we stood, Deer hissed. This was a setup. I turned to him, steady, cold. No, Deer. You set this up. The moment you decided we belonged in the basement. And then we walked out. Outro. 3 hours later, we sat in a quiet corner of a restaurant, our usual Friday lunch spot. Though nothing about this day was usual. No one said it aloud, but we all knew. The war was over. Talia raised her glass. To liberation, she said simply. We clinked glasses, the sound soft, unceremonious. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic declarations, just relief. Quiet. The kind that settles in your chest like warm water after months of cold stone. My phone buzzed. It was Ian. Dear and Bastion are gone. Board approved your proposal. When can you start as department director? I showed the message to the group. They read it in silence. Then Ren leaned back, her eyes wide. So that was your plan all along, she said. I shook my head. Not exactly. The director seat? No, I replied. That was never the goal. Then what was? Dax asked. I looked at them, each face, each story. People who had given years of brilliance, resilience, loyalty, who had slept under desks, skipped family dinners, fixed fires that should have sunk the company. I wanted to make sure no one else would ever get sent to a basement again. A pause. Then Vega murmured, That's better than a promotion. I smiled. I'll split my time between both companies, I told them. 1 foot here, 1 foot with Talia. This isn't about loyalty to a place. It's loyalty to each other. And to the truth, Kyrie added. Exactly. Oh, wah. 6 months later, the industry wrote about us. 2 companies once competitors, now sharing engineering resources, knowledge bases, cross-functional teams. Productivity was up. Burnout was down. Our hybrid model became a case study. People called it disruptive. We called it survival. Dear? Last I heard, he was working at a startup with fewer than 10 employees. Bastion had rebranded himself again this time as a culture transformation coach. And my team? We no longer worked in shadows, no longer apologized for our brilliance. We worked in sunlit offices, some in downtown towers, some remote by choice, but always together, connected by choice, not confinement. There were moments I still remembered: the basement, the mildew, the hum of forgotten wires, the way it felt to be erased. But I also remembered the promise I made there to never let that be the end of our story. And we didn't. We rewrote it. We redefined power. And we reclaimed our names. Because sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't what you do to those who wronged you. It's creating a world where what they did to you becomes impossible for them to ever do again.